Hey, Stonewater family, and welcome to the Stonewater podcast. We are continuing our conversation around Man Camp. And I've got some new face. This is Mike Williams from the Glen Rose campus and Beau Mills from last time. And I think, Beau, where we ended last time was we kind of got guys introduced to Man Camp a little bit, remove the mystery, but we want to focus on stories. Like we want to hear stories, right? So, Mike, I don't want you to be a stranger. If you're going to tell your story, we need to know something about the storyteller a little bit.
Okay.
So, tell us a little bit about you and, your Stonewater experience. When did you join? How long you been going? Which campus? And then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So, first time into a Stonewater church was about, I want to say 11 years ago.
Okay.
About 10 or 11 years ago. Walked in. My background did not dig ball caps and loud music.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking in to judge. I mean, my job was to look at all the people who were getting it wrong. And that was my story. And everybody walks in with a story, right? And my story was, I was there because my late wife had kind of drugged me there. And what I was digging about this church is I knew there were people coming to that church asking, tell me about Jesus. They weren't coming to my church and doing that. So I was kind of like guerrilla warfare. I was going to go in here and try to save these people that I knew were lost. So my story's changed quite a lot since then, and God's done a big work in me. But yeah, so that's kind of my first experience.
Okay.
So I think Jeremy and Joey both were not quite sure if I was a good thing or maybe I was a bad thing. So
all right. So which campus did you
was
start?
Glen Rose.
Glen Rose.
Yeah,
Okay.
Glen Rose campus.
Glen Rose, your hometown?
No, grew up in East Texas, a little town called Dangerfield, which is around Longview and northeast Texas, up in that neck of the woods. Hugh Springs, Dangerfield, Piney Woods. So
All right.
that's kind of what brought us out here. So I always swore off that I'd never live in a small town again. And as soon as I spent enough time in the city, I was like, I can't wait to get to a small. I'm getting out of here, man. So that's what kind of brought us to the community of Glen Rose, and it's been a blessing. That was 2001.
So you mentioned your late wife.
Yes.
Late wife. So I know there's a story there, and if you feel comfortable, you could tell
Yeah.
it. But what happened?
So my late wife, Laura, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer about 6 years ago, and she it happened fairly quickly that she found out when we went on a vacation and in June, and within 90 days the Lord had taken her home. So it was both a shock and a real kind of gut check in a lot of ways. But God was rich in it, and I'm not sure we have enough time in the program to go totally into that, to do justice by that. But yeah, I learned a lot in that, and she taught me a lot to how to struggle well. And so that's part of the story.
Okay, so let's. What happened since then? So we want to focus on Man Camp a little bit, but I know, like you're a man of many talents. You recently wrote a book, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about this book.
Yes. So it's called The Trail in the Woods. And some of the things I was walking through with the loss of Laura was I knew God had put it on my heart to write. And I had been writing for years, but I always wrote in private, so I never shared it or anything. Not much, just maybe a friend or two. But my sons had graduated high school and now were in college, and I just had this panicked feeling of, oh my gosh, they're not ready. And I knew that because I wasn't ready for sure, and who is really, right? So I wrote, and the best way I knew how to write was through poetry. So I took wisdom, but I wanted that wisdom to point to Scripture. So growing up in the woods, I just love God's creation and just how he just manifests himself in his artwork and his handiwork, and it points to his nature. So I wanted them to experience something rather than, hey, read your Bible. I wanted to make sure that it pointed in that direction, but it's wisdom that, a dad or a granddad might pass on, but then it has the references in the column to make sure that it points you to the real wisdom, and that's the Word of God.
Wow.
That's called The Trail in the Woods.
Okay, that's cool. I remember you sending me
Yeah.
the drafts for it, and I thought, wow, this is kind of catchy because it's all like survival stuff, right?
Yeah, there's survival techniques, sprinkled in the lines, things that Dad would teach you: how to build a fire, how to sharpen a knife, how to track game.
Is there any pictures in it for guys like me?
Yeah, actually, I had did the illustration of it just so
Awesome.
that way, because I'm the same way.
There we go.
Because I'm not a big reader, and most of my friends. But the greatest compliment I've gotten so far from guys is, I don't read books. I hadn't read a book in 13 years. Dude, I read your book. And
That's
I'm
kind of
like,
cool.
That's cool.
That is
and
cool.
it's short, so
Yeah, and it's got study stuff in it. It's
That's neat.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So, all right, hey, coming back to Man Camp, right?
Yes.
You've been here, like, part of Stoneware for 11 some odd years, right?
Mhm.
What was your first Man Camp? Do you remember what?
Yeah.
Do you remember what was going on in your life?
Yeah, I remember.
First time. So walk us through. You show up to Man Camp. Who invited you?
Yeah, I just knew it was going to be. I knew it would be fun, but I had two concerns. One concern was it was going to be goofy. And the other concern was it's going to be too churchy. So it's funny. I was trying to figure out how to condemn it. I already told you my background. So I was already trying to figure out what was wrong with it. So I went there, and I was just convinced before even giving it a shot that these guys aren't like me, and they don't know what I'm going through. They're not like me, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go have fun, whatever. And it was just the opposite. It was just a really fun yet safe place. That thing that you miss from high school, maybe high school sports, maybe the deer camp, the things that are the good stuff that men can't wait that's on the calendar. I came to recognize this event as that kind of thing. And it was a safe place to just be a dude, but at the same time, have fun and go a little deeper.
So when was that first Man Camp?
That had to be 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
Yeah, not 8 or
And
9
then how
years ago.
many have you been to?
I think I've been to a total of 7.
Wow.
Okay.
So
7 Man Camps.
yeah, so
In your first Man Camp, you said
Mhm.
it was you were worried about it kind of being goofy. So what, or the guys being there goofy, or
yeah,
uh,
and I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I can be 12 years old quick.
every guy can be 12 years old in the right
Yeah, bark
situation.
noises, the whole thing, man. I
Yeah.
can do it.
So tell me, like, what do you remember from that first Man Camp, either from the goofy side or from the churchy side?
Oh gosh, I remember Jeremy and Joey basically it was church camp without counselors. So, you know what I'm saying?
I like it.
So, I mean,
What happened in the cabin?
I think the big, gosh, it was one brother shooting another brother with a paintball gun, and who could handle it, and and it was like, I'm like, part of me was like, they're just, initially I was like, this is a put on. Oh no, that's them.
Yeah.
That's their character. This is not a performance. This is what they do in their spare time if they didn't have responsibilities as men.
When the wives aren't around.
When they're not looking,
Yeah.
right. They would just go do this. I dare you
Our
to do
pastors
this.
are 12 years old when they were by
In
themselves.
heart, yeah, right, man. So hey, watch this. So yeah, it was a lot of that, but then it would go from that to going, okay, let's talk about the Word of God. Now we're going to dive, and it would just deeper and deeper, deeper. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we're going places, and we're making a difference, and there would be men there that were speaking from wisdom, but not from a judgmental, hey, this is what you got to do. They're telling their own stories. And then it related and it resonated in my own life, and then it just gave me this weird place, and that weird place was just a safe place to say, man, yeah, I want to get better. I think what some people might know about Man Camp, and what I thought I knew about Man Camp, was you're going to have fun, you're going to learn how to be a better dad, a better husband, a better brother, but what you may not know is it's going to make it easier.
So explain
to
that.
do that. So that is already pretty heavy load. Provider, husband, father, parent, all that good stuff. So, but you have no idea how heavy that burden is alone. It's like cutting off a 80-pound backpack you didn't know you had.
So like the stress of that.
The stress of that, and then you didn't know how hard you could run.
Yeah.
You didn't know you were missing that much O2. The Bible talks about in Ecclesiastes 4:10 that it's sad when someone falls and has no one to pick them up. That's a sad state.
Yeah, that's most isolated
And
men, right?
isolated, right?
Yeah.
So and then the enemy gets us off in a dark place, holds us up. We think we're protecting ourselves, but we got company. He's there with us, and he's jacking with us, and he's giving us identity. And so you just, it's like asking someone what it's like to be a twin. I've never had anything else. What do you mean? What's it like to be not a twin? So, anyway, that was kind of the revelation of, wow, there is more to this whole thing. There's more to this brotherhood. And men's breakfast is great. Got a great men's breakfast. There's just more than men's breakfast. There's more than fellowship Sunday morning. Hey, Beau, how's it going? Hey, pretty good. How are you? Hey, thumbs up, man.
Very surface level.
Yeah, and surfaces. You got to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right? But this was like, hey, let's go.
It gave you a space
Yeah, gave me
to
space.
get a little deeper.
Yeah, let's do this.
What I've realized in my year and a half of running these men events and being around men a lot is most men, and being in baseball and being in the clubhouse and being around men outside of the church, is like you give them the opportunity, you give them the space where they feel comfortable. Every man I've met is looking for that opportunity to talk about a real challenge in their life, something that's eaten at them in that time. And so what I'm hearing is that in man camp it's fun, but you have that opportunity, you have that space where you feel comfortable to maybe dig into some stuff where you haven't gone in a while.
Right.
Yeah, that's neat.
All right, so I want to, what I'd love to hear, Mike, is like, just like your book, A Trail Through the Woods, right? You have this journey where it's been marked by events at Man Camp.
Yeah.
Like you have a trail. What I'd love to hear is, so tell us the landmarks along the way, right? You went to Man Camp and you heard a great speaker, or you had a great conversation, or you had just a stupid good time, and it sticks out in your mind. Like, as you look back over that trail you've kind of walked, hey, I remember a Man Camp when Joey got up and he spoke about holiness and how that stuck with you. So there's no right or wrong here, but I'd love to hear this, like Mike Williams' anthology of his Man Camps.
That's okay. I'm going to put you right back on the spot. This is total bullwhip. It's one of your sessions.
Oh, really?
Identity, talking about your granddad and talking about the legacy.
Oh, yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, I could tell you were wearing it, but you were bringing it too.
So one of his sessions, like, what's a session? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's breakouts. That's a good question. So there's breakouts. So you, as guys, you can go and say, okay, like what's next? So, and then you can pick between these sessions or breakouts that address specific opportunities to better your life or to speak into something. Whether it's about finances or whether it's about a dad wound, or maybe it's about how to be a better protector, about marriage, about
Sex,
pornography.
I mean, you get into some,
you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Some places that we don't talk about at church that we talk about.
Yeah, we'll have 20 breakouts this year with 20 different topics. So
that's a lot.
So do you remember what he spoke on?
Yeah, it was about legacy.
Yeah, I remember. And so this is probably what some guys don't know, is that the breakout sessions are not made by the pastors, not all of them. There's just regular dudes that have a story. And that was my first Man Camp where they asked me to talk. And I remember it was really challenging. I don't know if it was Casey or Jeremy, but he said, I need you to speak on leaving a legacy when it's you feel like you've missed it, right? So I think I've missed my legacy. What do I do, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, what do I do? And I thought, and it was, how God speaks to you. Like sometimes it's, and my granddad just kept popping in my head. I'm like, so Lord, what is it about leaving a legacy that he's taught me? And then it just kind of came together, and I was like, I got to talk about my granddad, because he left one. And it wasn't until I was 25 years old that I got to see his legacy. And I was like, okay, there's a story there.
So I think it's fun watching guys have their discoveries there, because it resonates so much with you about your own story, or your story that's in development, or the story that you want so much to have, but you just, that's not going to happen. Then you hear somebody else go, I didn't feel it's going to happen either, but I think you're watching it happen right now. So walk it out with me.
Now that you're talking about it, one of the things I think that Man Camp does that we just don't even recognize is it gives us time to listen. We really get to listen to other men. Like, how many times do we get to do that?
Right.
That's a good point.
We get to sit and listen to a guy's story, and we identify, we can come back and go, man, I thought I was the only one.
And that's where the enemy does his job.
And that's what you
right?
give him like, and then he comes back.
Yes.
It's like, I'm with this with all these other guys, but my struggles are not unique.
Yeah.
All right. So that aside, what are
Yeah.
some other man camps?
So there are brothers that I've seen their stars change.
Okay,
they're-
explain that.
They're that whatever's keeping you from taking fully what God has provided for you in identity and what he has for you as a son of the Most High God, whatever that thing is, you may not know that it's a thing. But when the scales drop off the eyes, not to use too much Christianese, but one brother in particular, and he won't mind me using his name. His name is David Hood.
Oh, I know, David.
Brotherhood, man.
Yeah.
Brotherhood. So just love football, love sports, man's man, and he came to man camp, and I could tell that, like most of us, just very speculative, like, whatever, let's do this.
Trying it out.
But man, gosh, he changed. It changed his stars, and he's a leader now, and he leads me. I mean, he's just watching him run hard, in imperfection as we do, just knowing where your strength comes from, and so his story is powerful. Guys that I've seen guys go from, surely I can't play, I can't participate in this whole church thing, but I'll hang out on the fringe, to going, me, God? Me? No, not me?
Yeah.
Really? It's like, yeah. Hey, if you're broken and you don't know what you're doing, you qualify.
That's
So-
right.
Okay, it's everybody that's attending.
Yeah, right. So you're hired. So that's my story, and I think that's one of the cool things too, is it provides a place for men to go, all right, let's work on some stuff. Hey, let's pop the hood. Let's work on a few things, but then, man, let's go ahead and soup it up while we're under here, man. Let's say we do something.
It's exciting to hear those stories for me, now being on this side of it, and thinking about man camp and trying to organize it and develop it. And the thing that excites me about men is I believe God created us all to be leaders somewhere in life, whether it be in your family, at the workforce, or a part of a big team somewhere, or whatever it is, wherever you're at, God has made us to be leaders. And sometimes men lose that feeling,
Right.
or think that they're not a leader, or don't
They're
know.
unqualified.
They're not qualified, and they go there, and it's like, oh, I am, and they take that charge, they accept that, and you see them go back in their family's lives, be that leader that God's called them to be,
Right.
and really changes the destiny of their family.
Yes.
Not only does it just affect his life, now it's affected his wife's life and their kids' lives, and then their kids' life. A man can change so much.
Yes.
And for him to go to man camp and have that change, to change, the legacy of his family, is unbelievable. That's
Yes.
It
It's
fires
a
me up to
cat.
hear those stories.
It's a catalyst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And then it also addresses the lie that you're not leading now. You're either leading by default or by design.
Yeah.
You're either doing it on purpose, or you just mailing it in. You're thinking, surely I'm not leading. And oh boy, you are leading.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that. I speak from experience. Another good story is my brother Gavin, which, gosh, he's going to kill me. So he goes in, and like one of the things. This is back when Chris Williams was with us.
Oh yeah,
Chris is
brother Chris. Yep.
Hysterical, awesome. But the freshman thing, and I don't want to blow it for anybody. But
Yeah, don't blow it.
I don't want to blow it. Bottom line is, he thought this thing that he was dealing with was one thing, and when he came out, he said what the thing really was, and it had tears in his eyes, and if it wasn't so darn funny, it was just so true. But as and just his heart changing, and other brothers, we've all had that moment where we're like, yeah, I'm certain I know what the thing is.
Yeah.
Here's the thing right here. I already know what it is. And then God reveals and does something, and you're like, oh, that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the thing. It was right. It was right here in front of my nose. And praise God that He's given me eyes to see. So now I can work on the thing I need to work on, and I'm not doing it alone.
So as a guy that goes to man camp, I'm guessing you've gone back. You've been to multiple. Have you spent the night there? Or
Yes.
do you go?
Yeah,
have.
I've done both. I'm blessed that our house is not too far from there.
Mhm.
So and I've got
It's kind of nice to be able to go back home.
it is. Hey, there's something to be said.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. That's why we give the option.
Yeah, right. And it's an experience that it's just something about waking up in the cabin and knowing you're walking to go get coffee at the cafeteria, and maybe you spent a little later night, playing cards or talking to one of the guys, and those conversations you get in, you're like, this is my best friend for life. Met him 10 minutes ago. I don't even know his name. He's cafeteria guy because that's where I saw him. It's just so that's cool.
Yeah. So I didn't stay my last man camp, and I went to everything though. But I think there's some opportunity that's missed in that cabin time. Like feeling like you're in a clubhouse again with a bunch of guys. And creating conversation that you wouldn't have created, or creating relationships.
So so random question, Mike. Out of all the man camps that you've been in, what is the latest that you've stayed up on a Friday night? Because I know from experience.
Willingly.
Yeah.
I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah. So what was the latest night you had on a man camp weekend?
I think I in and out dozed till about 2 in the morning once.
What were you doing?
Yapping and listening, and then hearing other guys' conversations, and then going back and getting a bottle of water. And, hey, I'm just going to get a bottle of water. And then you see somebody, hey, next thing, and you're talking again.
Yeah.
And they're sharing stories. So that wasn't my go-to, because the young, I call them the young Turks, the younger guys that can stay up all night, and they're balling all night, playing.
Don't
hoops.
hit me. I'm not one of those.
So I thought I'd hang with them for a while, and then I'm like, so, but yeah, that's one of the late nights.
All right. So tell us some about some of the main speakers, right? Some guys come. Sometimes Joey, sometimes Jeremy. Is there any particular speakers or topics that you remember hearing during the main speaking times that stuck out?
Yeah. So Rusty Crum had a great one on how to train and to work with your kids, and I love it because Rusty has a background actually, and don't laugh, but training dogs. So, but he knows behaviorally what will work. And the irony is that there's a lot of metaphors for how to train up a kid. And, a lot of it has to do with consistency. And he always says there's no such thing as a bad dog.
There's poor training.
Just poor training. So it really puts the onus like, ooh, that kind of hurt.
On the parent,
So it's like, but anyway, those were good. And then I've had the opportunity to do some breakouts of my own, so we're fun. And anytime, when you do one of those, it makes you prepare, and you end up learning because you're having to prepare for this.
So the main one, can I answer that question too?
Yeah.
My last man camp, I left baseball in 2014, and I was kind of just searching, like, I felt like I was always missing something. And the main speaker last man camp was talking on adventure and how God designed men for adventure. And man, it just hit me. It stuck with me. I was wondering what my adventure is, and it's just really charged me as a guy to go, keep an adventure in life and keep that going, so you never be stale. And
Pastor Dan, I think.
Yeah, Dan Kellogg.
Kellogg. Dan
Yeah,
Kellogg,
Dan
that's right.
Kellogg. Yeah. So anyway, I remember that. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a good
talk.
one for me. That was a
great.
good one. And just that fire in your belly, there's a reason it's there. God put it there, so that's good.
All right, so you did some breakout sessions. Do you
Yes.
remember a couple of them that you had to teach on, and what the reception was, or how God prepared you for it, what He taught you?
Yeah. So one of them was on finance, but really it was about how to steward your talents. So that made me really dig down and kind of put me on the onus first, about, the parable of the talents, and then also about what God has put in you that he put there on purpose. So it made me just realize and kind of go back through my inventory, what has God purposed in me? How does he, I always talk about fletching the arrow. So, he fletched you a certain way, you're long distance, accuracy, close range, and what are you? What do he make you to be? And just notice, and people will tell you, right? They'll tell you, I see this in you. So that was good, helped me a lot. And then this one that we got coming up is Your Wife Is You Too. So it's about the intimacy that happens between a man and wife, a husband and wife, and how we really are. We really are one. It's not like
So you got remarried, right?
yes,
Yeah. So how long ago was that?
yeah, just golly, man, 4.5, about 4
And Molly.
years ago. Yeah, Molly.
So tell us a little about Molly. I'm just curious.
Yeah, Molly. She's amazing. Met her at a thing called Grief Share.
Yep.
We were both.
We have one at our church here.
Yes, that's right. I love that we got it now at Stonewater. But and that obviously wasn't a plan. But she had lost her husband, her late husband, to heart failure, and so I was just. And actually, this is in South Lake. I wanted to get away from anyone who knew me, and I almost was hoodied up with a ball cap on. I just wanted to get away, and I knew I had work to do in grief. So anyway, that's how we met, and God has, a good friend once told me, and that, hey, it's not common for a man to find a great wife. It's, God gave you not just one but two. You're on the hook. You've really been blessed, and that just made me take stock too. So but yeah, I can't say enough about her. She's
So that's what your breakout is, just a reflection on.
Yeah, just marriage, and about the lie the enemy tells us that they're separate, that there's somebody else, and that they're not the one. We'll start off, and I don't want to get too far into it, but just about that intimacy, about how the power of that intimacy, and how God, His whole Bible is full of, hey, let's get close. Hey, this is great. Let's get a little closer, and unity, and the premium He puts on unity.
So another random question, and if you don't want to answer it, you can. So at the end of each man camp, there's kind of like this one ceremony that we do, and it's the one thing. Once it ends, then everybody kind of scatters, and usually we go to the bonfire or the campfire area. Everybody sits there, and it's just, all right, guys. We stand around, sing. Adam sings a few songs, and the guys stand up and they say, "Hey, how did it impact you?" Right.
Right.
So think back on that. Do you have any moments about guys that stood up and what they said?
Oh yeah.
What they carried away?
Yeah. So some of it's almost like, when you start doing something that you just know you don't want to do, and then you just don't want to do it. So you do it. Mama made me, whatever. And then by the end, you're like, "Is this it? We got to go home." So there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
It's a cool way of like, I don't want to lose this, that mountaintop moment you don't want to miss again, right? So a lot of that, and then also the finality of, this is what you've walked through.
Yeah.
Some of it's exhausting, but it's rich. You don't want to miss it, kind of stuff. So that's those guys standing up and saying, "Hey man, I know one of the breakouts that Joey's going to have is, man, I screwed up. I ate it. I hit it hard."
Yeah, him and Don Rogers.
Yeah, Don. So one of those, and some guys going, they had lost all hope. Hope wasn't something for them anymore. And then they realized, oh no, I can play too. So those are really compelling. And then, a guy that, just his newest, just his marriage was, sometimes we want to barter with God. Hey, I'll do this if you do that, kind of thing. And, you think, well, that's deplorable. Not that any of us ever does that, right? So, but God can take something that's a little off and still do something beautiful in it.
Yeah.
So they might have went there because they wanted to get their thing. But God's like, man, I've got so much more for you than just that. And when they realize that and their mouth just opens, just shut up and listen. So it's good.
I'm reflected that it's always a hoot for me because those guys get up and you could, it's almost like you could see men's spine grow over 24 hours, right? They get there
Well
and you
said.
can see their body language, like they don't want to be there. They're reluctant. Their eyes are darting around. And then 24 hours later, they're standing up at that campfire and they say something like this. I know I had to say something, I didn't want to, but God's been asking me to say something the whole time. And it's the first time they've ever spoken to a group of men, and they just confess. They say, I was here. God showed me this. And it's awesome because then you have like another guy finds his spine because that guy stood up. And then it's just this kind of domino effect of all these men finding their courage.
Yeah.
And then that propels them as they go home. It's just awesome.
And it's cool. And it's often they think that they're just purging something, but what they've done is they've encouraged us too. They have no idea how they've encouraged us. And because, like you say, the next guy's like, I guess I'm standing up too now because that's mine too. Anyway, yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah, speaking of encouragement, Dan, I thought what he spoke on, that was Friday night, and I didn't stay there, so I drove home, and my blurting out was to my wife. So I went home, and man, I was so excited and so far. So I was one of those guys, right? I didn't know what I was walking into. And I went to that session, and I left, and I was so fired up. I went home. I think we stayed up till like 11:30, midnight, and I was just talking with her about what God was showing me in that time, blah, blah, blah. And that was just such a fun time for me and my wife to be home doing that, like while I'm at man camp. Technically, I woke up the next morning, first thing went back. But that was a neat time for me to just me confessing what God was doing in my heart at that time and what I just heard. And that was pretty cool. So you sound like a pretty normal guy. It's been, like honestly, I've really enjoyed this. I haven't got to sit down with you very much and hear you speak. If I'm a guy out there listening to this that I've never been to a man camp, I don't know what to expect, what would you say to him to encourage him to, hey, take the step to sign up, to go, to be there? What do you say to that?
So here's the big, and if you're asking that question, lean in and listen. The reason you're not going to go is the very reason you should go.
Explain that.
I don't have margin in my life. I don't have time for this. There's going to be a breakout, I'm sure, on time management and how to use your resources best. But more than anything, the peace you need, and you know this from playing professional sports, the peace that you require to play at an optimum level, God has that for you at man camp. Hey, I don't have the finances, man. My finances are in a mess. Just can't do it. Just can't pull it off. There's scholarships in place to make sure that you're going. Don't let money keep you from getting to receive what God has for you. And then there's breakouts on how to do that, and not alone, how to manage your finances better. There's a tool, there's something. God has something for you at man camp that the enemy wants to make sure you don't touch. So get over yourself, sign up, show up, and let God do the rest of the heavy lifting. That's what I want them to hear.
That's good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Mike, you're going to man camp.
Yeah, better be a man camp.
So we have more stories to tell in the future, but at the same time, Mike, thanks for committing to help men grow, through man camp and
grows me.
Taking the time. But this has been fun, and thank you so much, Beau, you too. Thanks for being here, and let's hope the guys listen to this and they show up.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Thanks, Mike.
All right, awesome.
Appreciate you guys.